Happy spring to you all. As always here on the Fowler Show, we're here to inform you, to empower you, and to help you get your voice back. Tonight's show, America, is absolutely, positively no different. We have all the segments that you can use, news by the numbers, political maniacs, and oh so much more. But right now, it's time for your news by the numbers. There's no talking points, there's no talking heads, there's no smoking guns. Tonight, love, it is you, me, and nothing but the numbers. And tonight's number, America, is 1.5 million. Yes, indeed, it is true. A New York Times report indicated that 1.5 million African American men are missing in the United States. Don't worry, they weren't abducted by aliens, but they were abducted. And I say abducted seriously because of really, really bad laws and even worse policies. America, this is how it all boils down. Between the age of 25 to 54, 1.5 African American men have disappeared from free society. Majority of them, a good majority of them, are part of the United States prison population. Now, the United States prison population has increased drastically from the 1980s, even though homicides in this country are down whopping numbers, right? So homicides are down big time. But the prison population is up since the 1980s. Now, I guess everybody's trying to figure out, okay, so that would mean we have a tipping point. You are indeed correct, you smart ones out there. Here is the tipping point. Ronald Reagan, the war on drugs. Non-violent drug offenders, right, have increased tremendously since the 80s, which is why African Americans are disappearing. Now, that you can't look at drug offense in a vacuum, because then you have people say, well, they're criminals and deserve to go to jail. But you got to put it in context. So you have communities that are dilapidated, right? You have public education systems that are not properly funded and don't have adequate resources, right? You have job training programs that don't have adequate resources and aren't properly funded. There's no jobs in the community, no investment going into the community. So people resort to the only way they can eat, and that, drug violence, drug abuse. And because, thanks to first Richard Nixon and then Ronald Reagan, they've seen drugs or drug use as a crime instead of as a public health issue. Drug abuse is a healthcare problem like schizophrenia, bipolarity, alcoholism. Those are all medical problems. But Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon saw it fit to make those what we would like to call criminal justice problems. And thus, they've overloaded our prisons with nonviolent drug offenders. And so now you have a situation where African Americans are disappearing at record number, right? There was 1,217 deadly police shootings between 2010 and 2014, capturing the federal data that shows Black men aged 15 to 19 were killed at a rate of 31.7 per million, while just 1.7 per million white men were killed in the same age range at the hands of police. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we don't have a problem with criminality in our community, but we have to ask ourselves first how the African American community got there. And I can't answer for you in one segment, but do your research, folks, because where there's smoke, there's fire. And correlation doesn't always equal causation. But I want folks to go back, do your research. Let's have a real conversation about this, and let's not just kick around talking points. But let's get to the root of the problem. And like my mom always says, instead of let's stop treating the symptoms and start looking for a cure.